You think success comes from one big move, one lucky break, one moment where the world suddenly notices you. That's the fantasy. Weak men sell themselves so they can sleep at night. The truth is uglier. The truth is slower. And the truth is that almost nobody has the discipline to survive it. Power doesn't explode into existence. It compounds quietly, ruthlessly, what everyone else is distracted. Look around. Most people are drowning in their own laziness. They want transformation without repetition. They want dominance without discipline. They want results without the boring grind of improvement. But the real world doesn't reward emotion. It rewards accumulation. One better decision, one sharper habit, one extra rep, one extra hour. Do that every day and you start separating yourself from the herd faster than they could even understand. Small improvements look harmless. That's why losers ignore them. They laugh at the man who wakes up earlier, studies longer, trains harder, sharpens his mind a little more every day. They call it obsessive. They call it unnecessary. What they don't understand is that compounding is a weapon. A tiny edge today becomes a massive advantage tomorrow. 10 minutes of discipline today becomes 10 years of dominance later. Think about money. Everybody understands compound interest when it comes to cash, but suddenly they become stupid when it comes to life. If you improve 1% every day, you are not the same man in a year. You are dangerous. Your mind thinks faster. Your body moves stronger. Your confidence becomes unshakable because it's built on evidence, not empty motivation. Meanwhile, the average man stays exactly the same. Same habits, same excuses, same weak routines. Every day he delays improvement. The gap between you and him multiplies. That's the brutal math of reality. Winners accelerate. Losers stagnate. And stagnation is death disguised as comfort. Dominant men understand something the world refuses to admit. Identity is built through repetition, not motivation, not inspiration, repetition. Every disciplined action sends a signal to your brain, this is who I am. Train every day and you become the man who trains. Work relentlessly and you become the man who produces. Improve constantly and you become the man who cannot be stopped. Compounding turns ordinary effort into unstoppable force. That's the secret nobody tells you. The billionaire mindset isn't about genius. It's about relentless stacking. Skill stack, knowledge stacks, reputation stacks, confidence stacks, day after day, month after month, year after year, until suddenly people call you talented, when in reality you just refuse to stay weak. But here's the brutal part most people can't handle. Compounding works both ways. Your bad habits compound too. Your laziness compounds. Your excuses compound. Every day you delay discipline, you're not staying the same, you're getting worse. You're drifting further into mediocrity while the disciplined men are building empires brick by brick. Most people sabotage their own potential because they misunderstand scale. They think progress only counts when it looks dramatic, visible, and impressive. They wait for the big breakthrough, the huge opportunity, the moment where everything suddenly changes overnight. That mindset quietly destroys them. Real progress rarely looks impressive in the beginning. It looks small, repetitive, and almost invisible. And that's exactly why most people never reach power, because they underestimate the brutal strength hidden inside small wins. A single disciplined action seems insignificant. Waking up 30 minutes earlier, reading 10 pages instead of scrolling for 10 minutes, training one more set when your body wants to quit. None of these things feel like victory in the moment. There's no applause, no recognition, no immediate transformation. Weak-minded people look at those actions and think they don't matter. But the truth is that every small win is a signal, a message you send to yourself that you are the type of person who moves forward instead of standing still. Think about how identity is built. It doesn't appear out of nowhere. It forms through repeated evidence. When you complete a small task that most people avoid, you create proof. When you stack another disciplined action on top of that, you create more proof. Over time, your brain stops seeing these actions as effort and starts seeing them as normal behavior. This is how ordinary individuals evolve into high-performing men, not through sudden bursts of motivation, but through the quiet accumulation of small victories that reshape their mindset. There's something else people fail to understand about small improvements. Their real power isn't visible immediately. Their power is delayed. Imagine placing one brick on the ground. It looks pointless. Add another brick tomorrow, still unimpressive. Add another the next day, and nothing remarkable has happened yet. But continue placing bricks with precision and consistency, and eventually, you're not building a pile. You're building a structure. And once that structure becomes large enough, it becomes impossible for others to ignore. The disciplined man understands this reality. He knows the early stages of improvement feel slow and unrewarding. He knows the world won't recognize the effort yet. But he continues stacking small wins anyway, because he understands something most people don't: progress compounds silently before it becomes obvious. The first phase is invisible growth. The second phase is undeniable dominance. Most people never reach that second phase because they abandon the process too early. They demand immediate results from actions that require time to mature. When they don't see dramatic change within days or weeks, they quit. They return to comfort. They return to distraction. They convince themselves the effort wasn't worth it. What they fail to realize is that they were only a few steps away from momentum. Momentum is the real reward of stacking small wins. Once you have enough disciplined actions behind you, progress stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like forward motion. Your confidence strengthens because you have evidence that you can rely on yourself. Your habits become sharper because repetition has carved them into your routine. Suddenly, the tasks that once felt difficult start feeling natural. The difference between average men and dominant men is rarely talent. It's rarely intelligence. The real difference is patience with the process of small improvements. Average men search for shortcuts and dramatic change. Dominant men focus on controlled, consistent upgrades. One better decision today, one smarter action tomorrow, another improvement the day after that. Over time, these small wins begin to transform everything. Your discipline becomes stronger than your excuses. Your habits become stronger than your distractions. Your identity becomes stronger than your doubts. And while others are still waiting for the perfect moment to start, you're already miles ahead because you understood a simple truth early. The smallest victories, repeated relentlessly, eventually create unstoppable momentum. Intensity is seductive because it looks impressive. A sudden burst of effort makes people feel powerful for a moment. They push hard for a few days, sometimes even a few weeks, and convince themselves they're transforming their lives. The energy feels real. The motivation feels strong. But intensity alone is unstable. It rises quickly and disappears just as fast. This is where most people fail. They mistake temporary effort for real progress, and when that surge fades, their entire system collapses. Consistency operates very differently. It is quieter, less glamorous, and far less exciting to talk about. Showing up every day rarely feels heroic. Repeating the same disciplined behavior again and again can even feel monotonous. But that monotony is exactly what builds strength. When effort becomes routine rather than emotional, progress stops depending on mood, motivation, or external circumstances. Many people build their productivity around feelings. If they feel inspired, they work. If they feel tired, they pause. If they feel distracted, they delay. This emotional approach guarantees instability. Human motivation naturally fluctuates. Some days you will feel energized. Other days you will feel exhausted, distracted, or uncertain. When your progress depends on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. Consistency removes that weakness entirely. The disciplined individual does not negotiate with his mood. He operates through systems. When it is time to train, he trains. When it is time to study, he studies. When it is time to work, he works. The action happens regardless of how he feels in that moment. This shift is subtle but extremely powerful because it transforms effort from something emotional into something automatic. Consider two individuals with the same goal. One works with extreme intensity for a few days, then disappears for weeks. The other works steadily every single day, even if the daily effort appears smaller. At first, the intense individual looks impressive. His bursts of energy create visible spikes in productivity. The consistent individual appears slower, almost ordinary, but time reveals the truth. The one who moves forward every day eventually covers far more ground than the one who relies on occasional explosions of effort. There's also a psychological advantage hidden inside consistency. Every time you follow through on a routine, you reinforce trust in yourself. Your brain starts recognizing a pattern of reliability. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes what he starts. That internal confidence becomes extremely valuable because it reduces hesitation. Instead of questioning whether you will act, you already know the answer. Intensity rarely builds that type of identity because it is unpredictable. Someone who relies on emotional bursts often feels powerful during those moments, but that power disappears once the energy fades. Over time, this creates frustration. They begin many projects with excitement but fail to maintain momentum long enough to see meaningful results. Consistency builds momentum differently. Each repeated action strengthens the next one. A disciplined routine gradually becomes easier because the behavior becomes familiar. What once required mental effort slowly becomes a natural part of daily life. This is why high performers often appear calm while producing extraordinary results. They are not relying on bursts of motivation. They are simply executing habits that have been reinforced thousands of times. There is another advantage most people overlook. Consistency protects progress during difficult periods. Life will inevitably introduce obstacles, stress, and unexpected setbacks. When someone relies on intensity, these disruptions often break their entire rhythm. But someone who has built strong daily systems can continue moving forward even when circumstances are not ideal. The real difference between temporary success and long-term dominance is not passion, talent, or even intelligence. It is the ability to repeat disciplined actions long after the excitement has disappeared. The man who continues working when the routine becomes boring develops an advantage that others cannot replicate. Over weeks and months, that advantage becomes significant. Over years, it becomes overwhelming. Most people misunderstand identity. They believe it's something you declare with words. They say they are disciplined, focused, ambitious, or strong. But reality doesn't care about declarations. Identity is not what you claim. It's what your behavior proves repeatedly. The world doesn't measure your intentions. It measures your patterns. And those patterns are built through discipline. The majority of people live in a dangerous illusion. They believe they can think their way into becoming someone new. They listen to speeches, watch motivational videos, read inspiring quotes, and for a brief moment, they feel transformed. But feelings are temporary. Emotion fades quickly. And when it does, the person returns to the same habits that created their average life in the first place. Without disciplined action, identity never changes. Every action you take is evidence. It sends a message to your brain about who you are. Skip your responsibilities repeatedly, and your mind begins to see you as someone who avoids pressure. Break your commitments often enough and your mind labels you as unreliable. But the reverse is also true. When you act with discipline consistently, you begin constructing a different internal narrative. Consider the simple act of keeping promises to yourself. Most people break these promises constantly. They plan to wake up early, but hit the snooze button. They promise to train, but choose comfort instead. They say they will study, build, improve, and grow, yet distraction wins almost every time. Over time, this behavior damages their self-perception. Even if they try to believe they are capable, deep down, they know they rarely follow through. Discipline reverses that pattern. When you start honoring your commitments, even the small ones, your brain begins to register consistency. Wake up when you said you would. Complete the task you planned. Finish the work you started. These actions seem simple, but they carry powerful psychological weight. Each completed action becomes a piece of proof that you are someone who executes instead of someone who hesitates. This process gradually reshapes identity. Instead of seeing yourself as someone trying to become disciplined, you begin to see yourself as someone who already is. The difference may appear subtle, but it changes everything. When discipline becomes part of your identity, your behavior stops feeling like effort. It becomes alignment. Your actions match the person you believe you are. Most people fail to reach this stage because they rely on motivation instead of discipline. Motivation creates temporary enthusiasm, but it cannot sustain identity. Discipline, however, operates even when enthusiasm disappears. It keeps actions consistent long enough for your mind to accept them as part of who you are. There's also a level of control that emerges from disciplined identity. When you know you can rely on your own actions, uncertainty loses its power over you. Challenges feel less intimidating because you have already proven your ability to execute under pressure. Confidence begins to grow, not from empty belief, but from repeated evidence. People often admire individuals who appear confident and dominant in their actions, assuming those traits are natural or inherited. In reality, that confidence is usually the result of disciplined repetition. Each completed task strengthens self-trust. Each moment of control reinforces stability. Over time, an individual stops questioning whether they are capable and simply moves forward. The transformation does not occur instantly. Identity evolves gradually as disciplined actions accumulate. At first, the effort feels deliberate. You must remind yourself to follow through. You must resist the urge to fall back into old habits. But repetition slowly changes the internal structure of your thinking. The disciplined choice becomes easier because it aligns with the person you have become. This is the real mechanism behind personal transformation. Identity is not rewritten through inspiration. It is rewritten through repeated discipline. Every action either strengthens the version of yourself you want to become or reinforces the version you are trying to leave behind. Time is the most ruthless force shaping your life, yet most people treat it as if it has no power. They believe that staying the same today means staying the same tomorrow. They assume that delaying effort has no real cost. That illusion quietly destroys them. Time never leaves anything untouched. It multiplies everything it encounters. Every habit you repeat, every decision you make, every standard you tolerate, time magnifies it. People often believe that major life outcomes are caused by sudden events, a lucky opportunity, a breakthrough moment, or an unexpected failure. But those events rarely appear out of nowhere. They are usually the visible result of patterns that have been growing quietly for years. What looks like overnight success is often the product of thousands of small actions that accumulated over time. What looks like sudden failure is often the result of small neglects that were ignored until the damage became obvious. This multiplication effect is why habits carry so much power. A single positive habit might feel insignificant today. Reading a few pages, practicing a skill for an hour, maintaining a strict routine. None of these actions seem dramatic in isolation. But time does not evaluate actions individually. It stacks them together and amplifies their effect. When a habit is repeated consistently for months and years, the total impact becomes far greater than the original effort ever suggested. The same principle works in the opposite direction as well. Negative habits grow heavier with time. A small delay today may not seem dangerous. Skipping practice once may feel harmless. Allowing distractions to replace focused work may appear like a temporary compromise. But when these behaviors repeat themselves daily, they quietly accumulate into something much larger. Time turns small weaknesses into large limitations. This is why discipline becomes so valuable. It allows you to control what time multiplies in your life. Without discipline, time will simply amplify whatever habits already exist, whether they are useful or destructive. Most people drift into routines shaped by convenience rather than intention. They repeat behaviors that feel easy in the moment, without considering how those behaviors will evolve after years of repetition. Imagine two individuals starting at the same point. Their abilities are similar, their opportunities are equal, and their goals are identical. One chooses small, disciplined actions each day. The other chooses comfort and delay whenever effort feels inconvenient. At first, the difference between them appears almost invisible. Weeks pass with little noticeable change. Months pass and the gap is still small. But time continues to amplify their patterns quietly. Eventually, the accumulation becomes impossible to ignore. The disciplined individual has built stronger skills, clearer thinking, and greater confidence. The other individual begins to feel stuck, wondering why progress never arrived. From the outside, it may appear as though one person suddenly surged ahead. In reality, the separation was forming long before it became visible. Another powerful effect of time is momentum. Once a pattern has been repeated long enough, it begins reinforcing itself. Productive habits generate progress, and that progress creates motivation to continue. Unproductive habits generate stagnation, and that stagnation weakens the desire to act. Time strengthens whichever cycle you allow to dominate your behavior. This is why delaying improvement carries a hidden cost. When someone postpones disciplined action for months or years, they are not simply standing still. They are allowing time to amplify habits that keep them trapped. Meanwhile, someone who started improving earlier is benefiting from years of accumulated progress. The real advantage of understanding time's multiplying power is awareness. When you recognize that every repeated behavior will eventually expand and influence, your daily decisions begin to carry more weight. The seemingly small actions of today are not isolated moments. They are seeds that time will eventually grow into something far larger than they appear right now. Most people believe success is obvious while it's happening. They imagine that when someone starts improving, the progress will be visible immediately. They expect dramatic changes, instant results, and clear signals that someone is moving ahead. Reality operates very differently. The real gap between individuals begins quietly, almost invisibly, long before anyone notices it. The separation forms in daily habits, in repeated choices, in decisions that appear too small to matter. While the world remains distracted, that gap is already growing. In the early stages, the disciplined person does not look extraordinary. They wake up slightly earlier, work a little longer, focus a little deeper, and push themselves a little further than the average individual. From the outside, these actions appear ordinary. Observers rarely see anything remarkable. They assume everyone is moving forward at roughly the same pace. That assumption is one of the biggest misunderstandings about progress. The truth is that small advantages accumulate faster than people expect. A slightly stronger routine today leads to better focus tomorrow. Better focus leads to faster learning. Faster learning leads to higher performance. Each improvement reinforces the next one. At first, the difference remains subtle, but it never stops expanding. The average person overlooks this process because they judge progress by immediate results. If they cannot see dramatic improvement quickly, they assume nothing significant is happening. This mindset prevents them from recognizing the quiet growth occurring in disciplined individuals. While they are waiting for visible success, someone else is strengthening their skills, sharpening their thinking, and building consistency day after day. Another reason the gap remains hidden for so long is that discipline rarely attracts attention in the beginning. Quiet work is not exciting to watch. Repetition is not entertaining. Someone studying regularly, training consistently, or refining their craft in silence does not generate headlines. But this quiet stage is where the real advantage is built. The individual who continues improving during this unnoticed period is preparing for a moment when the accumulated progress becomes undeniable. When that moment finally arrives, observers often misinterpret it. They see a sudden leap in ability, a rapid rise in performance, or an unexpected level of success. Because they did not witness the long period of preparation, they assume something extraordinary must have happened overnight. They attribute the result to talent, luck, or natural ability. What they fail to recognize is the invisible gap that was forming long before the breakthrough appeared. By the time the difference becomes obvious, the disciplined individual is already far ahead. Catching up becomes extremely difficult because the advantage is not based on a single action. It is based on hundreds or thousands of repeated improvements. The gap represents years of consistent effort that cannot be replicated quickly. This silent expansion creates a powerful strategic advantage. While others are still deciding whether to start improving, the disciplined person is already operating at a higher level. Their habits are stronger, their thinking is sharper, and their standards are higher. Every additional day of consistency continues widening the distance between them and those who remain stagnant. The most dangerous trap for average individuals is believing they have plenty of time to catch up. Because the gap is not immediately visible, they assume the difference between them and high performers is small. They underestimate the accumulated progress that has been building quietly behind the scenes. When they finally recognize how far ahead disciplined individuals have moved, they realize the distance is far greater than they expected. The expansion never stops. Every day of focused effort adds another layer of improvement. Every disciplined routine strengthens the foundation further. While distractions consume the attention of most people, the quiet work continues, and the gap grows larger with each passing cycle of effort and time. Power rarely arrives in a single moment. Most people expect dominance to appear through a dramatic breakthrough, some massive leap that instantly separates them from everyone else. That expectation is one of the reasons they remain average. Real dominance is rarely sudden. It is built gradually through accumulation. Skills accumulate, knowledge accumulates, discipline accumulates. Over time, this accumulation produces a level of capability that most people cannot easily compete with. In the early stages, the process appears almost unimpressive. Someone dedicates time to improving a skill every day. They study information others ignore. They refine details that seem minor to everyone else. At first, these actions do not produce extraordinary results. The progress appears slow and steady, sometimes even frustratingly gradual. But each improvement adds another layer to the foundation being built. This layering effect is the core mechanism behind compounding growth. One skill strengthens another. One area of knowledge enhances the next. A disciplined routine improves focus, and stronger focus improves learning speed. Better learning speed leads to deeper expertise. The individual is not simply improving one element of their ability, they are constructing an interconnected system of advantages that reinforce each other. Most people never experience this type of growth because they approach improvement in isolation. They attempt to achieve results without building the supporting layers that make those results sustainable. They chase quick gains instead of developing systems. When those quick gains disappear, they find themselves starting over repeatedly. Compounding works differently because it turns progress into something permanent. Each skill acquired becomes a tool that can be used again in future challenges. Each lesson learned strengthens decision-making. Each disciplined routine increases mental resilience. Over time, these elements begin interacting with each other, creating a level of capability that grows faster than linear effort alone would allow. Consider how expertise forms in any demanding field. A professional does not rely on a single ability. They combine multiple strengths developed over years of repetition. Technical knowledge supports strategic thinking. Strategic thinking improves problem solving. Problem solving builds confidence. Confidence allows faster and more decisive action. Each component strengthens the entire structure. This is why individuals who commit to long-term improvement often reach a point where their progress appears to accelerate dramatically. Observers may assume the person suddenly became talented or naturally gifted. In reality, the acceleration is simply the result of accumulated advantages finally interacting with each other. The compounding effect reaches a stage where each new improvement multiplies the impact of the previous ones. Another powerful aspect of compounding is how it transforms confidence. Confidence built on empty encouragement is fragile. It disappears the moment pressure appears. But confidence built on accumulated competence is extremely stable. When someone has spent years developing their abilities, they know what they are capable of handling. That certainty allows them to act decisively in situations where others hesitate. This accumulated strength also creates strategic freedom. When skills, knowledge, and discipline have been stacked consistently over time, opportunities become easier to recognize and easier to seize. Problems that appear complex to others become manageable because the individual possesses multiple tools to address them. The most significant transformation occurs in how the individual approaches challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, they begin seeing them as situations where their accumulated preparation can be applied. Every previous improvement becomes part of a larger system supporting their actions. What started as small daily improvements eventually evolves into a powerful structure of capability. The individual is no longer relying on motivation or temporary effort. Their dominance comes from the layers they have built over time, each one reinforcing the next, each one strengthening the entire system of growth they have constructed through relentless accumulation. So the question is simple, not comfortable, not emotional. Simple. Are you stacking power every day, or are you stacking weakness? Because time is moving whether you act or not. And time magnifies everything. The man who improves a little today becomes unstoppable tomorrow. The man who waits for motivation becomes irrelevant. Choose carefully, because compounding never stops, and neither do the men who understand it.